Introducing Recorded Content, a podcast for small, scrappy B2B marketing teams who want to get the most out of podcasting. In each episode, we capture stories from industry experts and podcasters. Listen in and uncover what it takes to launch, run, and grow a successful B2B podcast. Check out and subscribe to the show on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. Let's jump in.
Hey, this is Tristan. I'm the co-founder of Motion and your host for this episode of Recorded Content. Recorded Content is brought to you by Motion, a done-for-you podcast agency for small, scrappy B2B tech marketers. And today, I have Zach Moreno on the show. Zach is the co-founder of SquadCast, a platform that helps podcast creators record studio-quality audio remotely. Recently, SquadCast launched video recording in their platform, and I wanted to bring Zach on to talk about the evolution of SquadCast and then dive deeper into how podcasting is becoming so much more than just a single audio channel. Well, Zach, the first thing I want to start with is really, SquadCast just launched video recording. I'm sure you're familiar with that slight adjustment, right?
Yay.
So let's start with this
Yes.
question. Most people still view podcast as an audio format, an MP3 that lives in an RSS feed. But what is a podcast today from your perspective?
Yeah, and we again, to go back to our kind of cultural roots and principle in listening, we were a bit confused how video fit into that picture as well. When podcasters first started telling us that they wanted that in addition to the audio, it wasn't obvious to us for the same reason that I believe you're asking the question. So what we did was really try to understand that before we, started working on anything in that vein. And that really led us to this kind of trifecta of informed that experience. And it's really three pieces. So Edison Research is responsible for releasing the Infinite Dial report, which has a lot of interesting data through polls that they do with both creators and consumers of audio content. And they interviewed a bunch of listeners to podcasts and found that audience members really think of it not as a podcast, but they think of it with as a show, a capital S show. And audio podcast is a big part of that show, but the video of that conversation is another way that an audience member may choose to engage with that show, as are show notes and transcripts and websites and episode teaser videos that have become very popular thanks to our friends at Headliner. So that was really eye-opening to us, because that's how we think about quality, and that is our focus at SquadCast, is audio quality content, followed by reliability. But we believe that quality matters because of your audience experience. So when we learned that audiences also wanted video to enhance that was a big piece of that story. Another was the promo opportunities to help podcasters create content that help gain traction with new audiences or grow their show through I mentioned the Headliner way to look at this, as well as just growth opportunities to distribute content on multiple platforms. So podcasters are very familiar with submitting their show to Spotify and Apple and all of these different places that make it easy for listeners to find their show. And we started to think of YouTube as an extension of that, or video as an extension of that. So it's really those three pieces that fit together that really were compelling to say, okay, we can, we've always had video for the real-time conversation, and flowing dialogue and body language is super important to that. So it made sense from why our customers were asking us for that. But it's really a combo of those things that really led us down this path. And was a lot of work. So it took us a little while to do it, but we're very, very happy that we've upheld our standards for quality and
Yeah, no, I
reliability all the
appreciate it. I
while.
know our clients kept asking too. It's like, well, I see Squadcast, I can see the other person, it's there, but we're not recording it. And I was always like, well, they're working on it. It's a complex problem to solve for sure. And we'll get into some of that here in a second.
I appreciate
Yeah,
that empathy.
absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
like running video production companies, that's my background. I owned an agency before Motion, so I'm used to having hard drives stacked up from floor to ceiling, and figuring out backup systems and dealing with terabytes of data. So I can appreciate the challenges for sure. So Zach, you mentioned some things about that podcast you were looking to create, right? That sci-fi drama that you talked about and that venture that you went on. And
Yeah.
so SquadCast really was born out of that experience that you had with creating your own show. So when was that light bulb moment where you're like, okay, this just isn't going to work. It's not going to give us the quality that we need. We're in different locations. Like, when did you actually say, I, I am going to be the one to really solve this problem?
Yeah, I mean, it's an audacious thing to think, so I can appreciate that. And we just kept assuming it was a solved problem, and then we just hadn't found the answer because podcasting had been around
Yeah,
for quite a while at that point. This being, over 4 years ago. So we just kept assuming, oh, there's got to be a tool out there. Like, OG podcasters can't be using Skype and Zoom
right.
to do these recordings or the phone. And we just kept having these conversations where people would tell us, yeah, we're using Skype and Zoom or the phone, but it was paper thin. Nobody was happy with the state of the art. It was just kind of like, it's a miracle
Okay.
we can do it at all. And there hadn't really been, an attempt to really build something unique to podcasting, and this idea of remote content production started to surface for us, where we could say, well, the web platform. I'm a full stack software engineer, so I did my internship on the Chrome team in 2012. I forgot to mention that, but that really gave me a lot of insight into what had recently become possible on the web platform in modern web browsers, specifically with audio and video. So there's a number of prerequisites that just didn't exist before, and that's another thing that I think why the timing of SquadCast is super important. There's kind of the timing within podcasting, but then there's the timing within
Hmm.
the technology that empowers SquadCast. So modern cloud architectures that are highly available and global on day one. We help podcasters record in over 130 countries. And just last year, we helped podcasters record over a decade of audio. So being able to meet that demand is non-trivial. That wasn't always possible on the web. So that's another part that kind of as a nerd, I love to add in
Yeah.
here, that it's amazing to me that those things lined up. But to answer your question, I was frustrated after a conversation with my brother Vince, who is the audio engineer I mentioned, and he just wasn't happy. He was like, "Why are we doing all this sound design and
Hmm.
post production?" um and kind of painting this audio picture when the vocals, like the foreground,
Right.
are terrible. Like that doesn't make sense to us. So um we found this concept from old school radio called a double ender. It's a terrible name, admittedly, but you basically get everybody in a conversation to record themselves, and that removes any kind of quality degradation from sending it over the internet or over the phone or things like that. But that is asking a lot of your guest in a podcast scenario. You're already, they're already sharing some time of
Hmm.
their day with you, and a lot of guests are not professional podcasters. So that's really where we started to ask ourselves, how can we empower that same approach of focus on quality from the double ender, but bring that into 2021. um and I remember it very vividly. I was long day at work at the government, coming back. I was on the bus going over the Bay Bridge, and I just started asking myself, like, excuse me, what can I do what could I do to put these pieces together? And I started making lists of the different pieces that we would need, and really focusing on the constraints of quality and reliability. How can we kind of meet all of those needs and provide this really easy experience? So by the time I got home, I was really, really feeling confident about that. And I was a bit naive to also add that this is a lot of hard problems. We have since then we have 2 patents pending for how we upload the audio progressively in the background, how we normalize for the timing audio drift issues that can arise from recording in a double ender style. So those are kind of, I think of those as like very deep problems. Like you don't get to those problems until you solve like 10 other problems in this whole thing. And they're not obvious on day one. So I think of those as like meta problems. And, the NASA talks about this in the space program, that like, it's like the unknown unknowns, I guess, is another way to think about this. And those are really fun problems to work on and solve. And, that's why SquadCast is a product focused company, and really, values our engineering team, because it's these are tough problems, and we're really grateful that we've been able to move the needle on them.
It's a heck of a drive over the bridge. So you came up with all that, for sure. Well, when did you know, Zach, that you were onto something? Because you talked about all these early challenges, right? The double ender scenario, and
Right.
how you're syncing audio, progressively uploading. There's a lot of moving parts. When did you know that, hey, I think this is going to work? We're going in the right direction here.
Well, to be frank, those 2 innovations came later. What came next was really just nights and weekends working by myself to build the MVP, to build the alpha product, and to even prove that this was possible in any way, let alone an optimal way. So that's what I spent the next handful of months working on in my spare time. I wish I had more spare time. It probably would have came to life sooner. But I started teaching during that time. I started teaching the course I mentioned at Cal Berkeley. And one of my students there just so happened to be a unique individual who had worked on IBM's innovation and investing team within the Middle East. And Ega is his name. So thank you for being one of our first mentors, Ega, if you're listening. And Ega was the first to be like, you have to get this in front of podcasters. Like, you've been in your bubble for a little bit too long. You have to be uncomfortable. You have to get out there and validate this. And the only way you're going to do that is by talking to professional podcasters. Have you actually talked to podcasters about this? And we're like, well, we started as podcasters, so we have a bit of an informed decision, but we were very, very green. We were very new. So there was a lot we didn't know or appreciate or understand. So he really pushed us out of our comfort zone and said, you have to go and sponsor an event. We were going to go as guests, as attendees, to check out Podcast Movement conference. And that, we got very lucky, was in Anaheim. We're in the Bay Area in California. So we could pretty easily, out of pocket, afford to drive, and we were going to get some tickets and talk to people that way. But Ega was like, no, you need a sponsor. You need to be part of the industry. You need to have a presence and a booth, and you're going to get very real conversations that way. So that's what we did. We got the last sponsorship that year. Thank you to the team at Podcast Movement for taking a huge risk on even letting us sponsor, because we had no product, no rapport, nobody knew who we were. But they took a chance on us, and we were taking a chance as well. So I'm very grateful for that. And what we did is we spent the next 3 days talking to professional podcasters and asking them, do you even have this problem? How do you go about solving it? Are you happy with the state of the art? What would you think if we did things this way? Here's a demo of our crappy alpha product. Like, let's try it out.
What was some of the early
we learned
I was going to ask, what was some of the early reaction? Because I came up, like I mentioned, in video production. And so when a lot of the voiceover work that we did, we would have to bring in VO talent into a studio in downtown DC and record it there. And then, we get the files from that. But it was such a coordination challenge to get people on site. Yeah.
a lot of
And so now
logistics. Yeah.
you're rolling with podcasters where you're almost opening up a door of possibilities, right? That they're probably not familiar with because they don't have the technology to enable it. So what was some of that early feedback that you got at that event?
I think it was the second person we talked to told us, I came to this event looking for a solution to this problem. And that really floored me. Like, I think I literally took a step back. And we really, I was super nervous. Like, we were putting
Mhm.
ourselves out there. Like, just imagine for a second with me, Tristan, like, what if our assumptions had been wrong? And then we would have just dropped a couple G's to go down and spend a few days in
Yeah,
LA being told that we were wrong for
right.
3 days straight. There was no
Yeah.
backup plan. So we really stuck our neck out there, and I'm so glad that we did. And also, I might add that the podcast community is so
Mhm.
open and welcoming to new ideas, and collaboration being a big part of that, which is core to what we offer at SquadCast now. So we were prepared to just stand there for 3 days and look like we didn't know what we
Right.
were doing if we were wrong. So that was probably one of the most courageous things that I've experienced in my life. It really took a lot of energy, and I was like writing code in the car ride down there, and the hotel the night before and after and during, and it was just a whirlwind. So I'm really glad we did that, and that podcasters were very open with us, and we actually met our we got one person to sign up for the beta,
All it takes is one
and
sometimes, right?
she's still with us. So that was
Yeah.
huge. It was like, wow, somebody is willing to part with their hard-earned cash to record on our nascent platform.
So do
That's
you
amazing.
remember the first
And
podcast that was recorded? What was that?
yeah, so I usually can remember her name. This was a while ago, but I do know that they're still with us. And it was an
Mhm.
NGO, a nonprofit that was focused on environmental policy. So I worked, I mentioned for the government, I actually worked for an environmental agency. So I think we kind of connected
Yeah.
on that level, and we're able to kind of say, we got your back. If anything goes wrong, like, here's my cell
Right.
phone number. We will make it right in any scenario for you, even if that's refunding or paying you to use our product. Like, we were at that level. So we got our first customer, exactly one. And um and that still blows my mind. But we also met our founding advisor, Harry Duran, who's the host of Podcast
Mhm.
Junkies and founder of Fullcast Media. And Harry was, in my opinion, like, the aside from the validation and just kind of saying, okay, this is a problem worth solving, and people will find value in it, and they're not happy, and we can help them in a new way. We also walked away with that relationship with Harry, and Harry became the sounding board, the voice of the podcast community for us,
Mhm.
internal to our team. So we met with him weekly, sometimes multiple times a week, and we'd ship updates in between then, get his feedback, talk
Right.
about it openly. What do you hate? What sucks?
Yeah, I know Harry.
And
I didn't know that he was,
and
an
just
advisor like that early on in providing that feedback loop for you.
yeah. We didn't make it official for a little
Yeah.
while after that, because I didn't even really know what an advisory board was. I'm a
Right.
first time
Yeah.
founder.
You're coding in your
I've,
car
I've
on
I've
the way
always
to
worked in
events,
technology.
it's
Exactly. So we learned, we're big on just in time learning. We learn from podcasts how to build a platform in a company in service of podcasters. So uh, it's super meta in that way. And yeah, Harry just became that ever present voice about, this isn't going to work, or this needs to be like this, or that doesn't matter. Don't even worry about that. Like, that's a big one that I will forever be grateful for Harry for many things. But the big two that I'll mention was, we had this grandiose vision for what SquadCast was going to be. It was going to have, of course, at the center of it, the problem we had initially started with was remote recording and
mhm.
studio quality. But we also wanted we extrapolated out from there and said, well, what if we did hosting? What if we did advertising? What if we did all the
Yeah.
things under the sun? And that was a potential pitfall that Harry saved us from. Harry said, look around this place. You're telling me you're going to do what all these companies do, and you're going to do it better than them and do it all under one umbrella. You're just wrong about that. Like, that's just false. But the problem you started with, the remote recording piece that you've already started building and all of that, is an actual problem nobody has solved and nobody is happy with. So focus on being the best in the world at that, and then start to look around and see what fits in nicely. And you'll have some partnerships by then. You'll have a more mature point of view. So that focus is another critical part of our culture, and I credit Harry to really, really calling me out on that. And it's easy to dream big. It's hard to focus on being the best at one thing. So that's another reason why we focused on audio first,
to get that right before
we
you
didn't want to
compile like a bunch of other problems on top of it with video.
Exactly. So video, video was we knew for a while that was going to be our next big move, but we wanted to nail audio first. So the other thing I'll credit to Harry was he was the first to ask the question, why does it take 15 minutes for my WAV file to upload? Or what happens if my guest disconnects before we're finished stopping, or their power goes out, or any kind of worst case scenario? So Harry asked the question, can we upload while we're recording? Is that even possible? And I think my answer was, it should be, like, physics, like it should be possible, like, but I don't know how. I'm not familiar with that technology, and turns out it doesn't exist, and we had to build it. And that took like 9 or 10 attempts before we got it right. And I'm so glad that he had that idea, made that suggestion, and pushed us out of our comfort zone to really build something new. Because that's ultimately where the magic of SquadCast lies, is how the reliability piece, that follows quality. Like, if I could record you, Tristan, the highest quality possible audio ever, but you never got that file,
Doesn't
that's
matter.
almost
It's
even
because
worse,
that
right? That's
that
like
was gold, and I just
cardinal
don't
sin.
have access to it. Yeah, and that's something that we found out very
Exactly.
early on, with our own podcasts and building these shows out for clients. There are always these connection issues. People will join a podcast from all kinds of different environments, especially when we started before pandemic and people were traveling. They're trying to record podcasts at the airport, and you lose a connection, and it's
Yes.
like, oh, well, damn, that was a good like segment there, but if I don't have it, then like you said, it doesn't matter. So yeah, I
Yep.
appreciate that for sure, just based on experience.
Yeah, and then we were skeptical that we could patent it. I'm pretty skeptical of the whole patent process overall. But we just we have this tendency to try to disprove ourselves over and over. I mean, even before I started writing code for SquadCast, we did a ton of market research to try to say, like, maybe we don't want to spend our time working on a problem that somebody else already solved. We want to build something new, and I think progressive upload and drift normalization are big parts of that, that are unique to SquadCast. And our patent attorneys have helped us find out that that's actually true, and that it didn't exist before. So that's even more validating in some weird way. But patents are weird things that are a lot of work. So I'm incredibly grateful for that opportunity to
Very cool.
add.
Yeah, that's how you have that unique component to what you're doing for sure. And Zach, you mentioned growth, right? Like, and I was doing some research on just where SquadCast has come from. Even on your MRR side, I know you did a piece for it was with Rob Walling and MicroConf. I know that you did a piece for that. I listened to that interview, which was really cool. And I might have my numbers wrong,
Nice.
but I know that you got your first 1,000, right, MRR, and then when you hit 10,000, it's like, wow, now we can pay ourselves. This is a real thing.
Yeah.
And now, over the last year, maybe a little bit more, you're over 100,000 MRR from what I understand. So tell me about, like, what sparked that, those two big milestones, like, what was the genesis of that, I guess?
So along the way, we are learning how we should we started with our product, right? We started with a problem and then a solution, and then how do we make that into a product? And then at some point I realized, uh, you can't just build products like and give them
Yeah.
away for free, and or you can, but it's a very different journey. And we wanted to build something that really focused on empowering professionals, and we felt that was a win-win scenario where we could build a sustainable business on top of this platform. Although we didn't know what that would look like, it was a hypothesis, and that's where my co-founder Rock comes in, who I believe the presentation you're talking about was also
Yeah.
my
You both, yeah.
co-host for that. So Rock has a different but very complementary background than myself, and we go way back. We are longtime friends from high school, and Rock through college and his career went a different path through finance and business, and I focused on design and software engineering. And I called Rock and pitched him on this idea and was like, "Hey, I kind of started building this thing, but I just hit pause on it because I want to see if we can do a startup around this too." Um, and I had been studying startups and kind of that
Mhm.
whole ecosystem and fundraising and all the things that come with it. And I didn't want to be a solo founder. I knew that. So I asked Rock if he would be my co-founder because he loved podcasting and actually got me into it, many years before. So he was a pretty easy sell on, the whole idea. What was much harder was how are we actually going to do this? Like, I have a job, you have a job, like, rent, car payments, all that stuff. So that's really what set us down this path of like, okay, can we self-fund? Can we bootstrap our startup? And can we hold down day jobs and build the product and get it to a point where we could phase out over time? We could phase out our day jobs and phase in SquadCast. And not just for ourselves, but we needed more than just the two of us. We needed my brother Vince came on as the head of our support and production, um, and Alex, our designer, joined the team around that time. We have a big design is
Yeah.
really important to us at SquadCast. So that's really largely Alex is way better designer than I am. So while we can speak the same language, he's very gifted in that way. So thank you, Alex. But that's really what set us down this journey of like, okay, if we're going to self-fund it, we need to figure out how we can pay ourselves and this
Mhm.
could be sustainable. And what are the different ways that we could consider like a pricing model or a business model? A lot of startups, they raise money, they quit their jobs, and then they start building their product to gain customers users, as it's typically called, which I'm not a big fan of that term. And they focus on growth and users first, and then try to figure out how to monetize and add a business
Right.
model down the road, which is a respectable path forward, but it wasn't really our style, to be honest. So we had a business model candidate for a business model because we wanted to try to self-fund and go down that path. We could always raise money, right? This is 2021. Venture capital has never been more available. The numbers are clear, especially as um, a Latino founder. There's even funds that are just
Mhm.
specific to that, right? So we knew we always had that optionality, and we have a lot of friends and advisors who live in that world, and we learn everything we can from them. As a first time founder, you have to, you can't assume that
Right.
everything. People have walked this path before or something similar. So we knew we wanted to learn from them, but if we could fund it ourselves, we were going to try. And that's really what we did. Rock and I paid out of pocket for about a year and a half, something like that, and several thousands of dollars went into getting the product to launch and beta, to a point where we could even consider looking for customers, and that's really what we did, and it just really evolved from there to, okay, how do we like optimize our business model? How do we grow the team? Because we're a product focused technology company in service of podcasters. We need software
Right.
engineers, and this is the Bay Area. Software engineers are very very sought
Yeah.
after, let's
There are a
say.
few companies out there
A-
that,
it's-
right.
yeah, and there's a lot of competition because you're competing to why should a software engineer work at SquadCast and
Right.
not Google? That's a tough question to answer. Thankfully, we have been able to answer that and grow. So that's really where I don't focus too much on the MRR or the ARR, but I do in a sense as the CEO of SquadCast make sure that we have the resources needed to execute on our roadmap and our plan, that our customers are asking us for things, and how do we build that and keep the lights on and continue to grow. So we're not gonna try to create the biggest
Mhm.
tech company ever, but I'm grateful in a crazy economic time that we've been able to add some jobs to the job market and give people pay that is worth their time, and we really value the team members that we get to work with every day. So that's really what our pricing is in service of from my perspective. But it has been quite a journey to that presentation we gave shortly after the pandemic started, and that was a big inflection point for us, where we had been working on this problem for I think about 3.5 years at that
Right.
point, about 3 years, and remote podcasting was growing and is a thing and was a thing at that point, but it really exploded when you couldn't go into a
Yeah.
physical studio anymore. That is something that I'm not a fortune teller. There's no way we could have predicted that. And it's quite honestly surreal, because we have a lot of friends in the startup space who were in exactly the
Yeah.
opposite scenario, and their business folded, and a number of people did. So I have so much empathy and understanding for our situation being very unique, and I can't explain it. It's just surreal is the only word that I think makes
Yeah.
some sort of sense. But that's not lost on us, and we're super
Yeah.
grateful
You're
for that.
definitely right there where you've seen like organizations with the environment that we're in, opposite sides of the spectrum, right? And I'm
Mhm.
curious with the situation that we're in now, if things change, like you mentioned, you can't tell the future, right? But I think the notion now that people have been able to get a taste of doing so much work remotely. I mean, do you feel like
Mm.
this will still be a big part of what people do, even if things do open up and we see people go back to the office? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, what we've learned along the way is a number of things. Like we were talking to ESPN before the pandemic started, but shortly before, and then and they were already interested in using Squadcast, and we learned that the bigger a company is, like, they're basically remote, even if they have offices, because they have ESPN
Hmm.
Deportes in Mexico City. They have offices all over the world. So even if people are working in an office, you still run into geographic distribution, logistics problems with getting people into the same room. So um, the more advanced and mature a podcast becomes, I think that increasingly becomes true. Or if you interview all the interesting people in your city, you're eventually going to want to talk to somebody out of your city. And do you travel for that? Like, travel's increasingly risky for a number of reasons. So we love being in
Hmm.
person as well. Like this, I'm not some like hermit who built this because I
So
don't want to.
trapped in your room.
I don't
Yeah.
want to be in the same room with anybody. Yeah, exactly. So I do think there is, as the world shrinks or gets bigger,
Hmm.
whatever your perspective is, um, the uh, the idea of remote content production is going to be increasingly part of quality content for professionals who want to grow their show and really provide a great product for their audience, and not have to sacrifice any of those things just because you're not in the same room with somebody. So I think there's a bunch of momentum here, even outside of podcasting, like so-called the VC term here would be like
Right.
future of
Yeah.
work. And you could, if you're a professional, then podcasting is part of your work. So more and more marketing teams are embracing podcasting. Internal podcast is something we've seen a number of organizations embrace, our own included. And we're just incredibly honored that we can play a role in that. The example I like to give is Microsoft. Microsoft is a customer of SquadCast, and their CTO records his podcast
Mhm.
on our platform, and as well as a number of others that are part of internal or external to Microsoft. And that just blows my mind because there's so many people who work there. There's so many cool things about that, and they've been great partners to talk to and learn from. And um, they know we're not using their cloud,
Yeah.
like, but they still they still use Squadcast, and that just blows my mind that we can help even companies like that record and find value
Yeah,
in
and I
our
was gonna
product.
ask, like, what's been your biggest surprise, maybe growth aside, like what Microsoft sounds like a thing that you're gracious that hey, we got a customer like that and they're using our product. But what's been the biggest surprise maybe in the last year with what you've seen? Maybe it's the types of companies that are adopting podcast, or what jumps out at you right there.
Yeah, I think it's the kind of the breadth of it, like how many companies are finding podcasting integral to their marketing strategy. How many companies are finding podcasting integral to their communication strategy with their own teams. So when you talk about companies that are global or even distributed across the United States, how does the employee of the month get recognized when
Hmm.
nobody's in the office? These are new opportunities where podcasting is finding ways to be of service to these unique creative opportunities are springing up. So I think that's really interesting to me, as well as the emergence of this category that we're working to define of remote content production. Um, and Squadcast isn't the only, audio and video aren't the only form of content that exists. So you can think of it like Canva or Figma are
Hmm.
design tools that empower remote teams to create quality content, um, as does Google Docs. And a number of other platforms. So we're really excited about the potential of that. That audio and video are really high fidelity forms of content and are increasingly gaining popularity on all, like, basically all mediums. So I think the big one for me to give you an answer to your question was hearing the Campaign HQ interview with former President Barack
Mm,
Obama. That one really just floored me, like knocked my socks off. I played it for my grandfather the other day, and it's
that's
just like,
awesome.
what? It's just like, I don't even have words to describe it, but that's super
Oh,
cool to
that's
me.
very cool. I love it. And you're talking about like all the different types of where audio and video fits in, and that kind of leads to my next question. Uh, when is it right to introduce video as part of your podcast? Like, how does a company make that decision? You talked about the Brock piece that you see, and you got NGO was your first client, and you got Microsoft doing stuff here. Like, how would a marketer, which is traditionally our audience, right? Like a small marketing team,
Mhm.
when is a good time, or when is the appropriate path to introduce video into the equation?
Yeah, I think it's probably a phased approach, and that can help you and your organization validate the cost of video, because you have extra things, right? You have a camera to consider, you have lighting to consider, you have bigger files to store, you have extra things to consider when it comes. The editing is different than audio, and complementary but different. So I think all of those things need to be weighed, and I all the time I think about how podcasting, it has parallels to a startup or a company, and there's a number of ways. So the same process that we went through to help validate our assumptions to if people would find value in the Squadcast platform, I think that's a similar thing you can do with your audience. So engage with your audience and ask them, like, how would you want video from to be added to our show, podcasting being part of that. We want to find ways to expand and provide interesting experience for you, our audience, and we think that video might be a good candidate for that, but you tell us. Another thing that you can use to validate is the promo material for an episode to help you find listeners and grow your show, adding video like of the person actually speaking that truth, I think is very compelling. And you can measure the engagement of those promotional materials to say, okay, people engagement went up because we started sharing video clips of our podcast guests. That's a pretty good indicator that if we published the full conversation with some customizations for video, that is a pretty good indicator that you're onto something there. And I think a lot of podcasters find it unique because they also own that content. So that's another piece to this that we're really big on at SquadCast, and it says in our terms and conditions, it's your content, you own it. And I think that the podcast being added to a marketing channel for an organization is a unique channel to add, because you actually own that content relative to how some of the other channels do things. So I think that all of those things are like a good way for you to validate. And as you see your audience engage with that content, and your show should benefit from that, I think that's a pretty good indicator that you could double down on it and add video to your
I love
production.
the phase approach. And we've seen that with a lot of our clients too. Most of the projects we worked on started out with audio, but then our video services have exploded, especially got SquadCast introducing
Nice.
this. And we do a lot of what you're saying, where you develop kind of these short form pieces with more energy, graphics, et cetera. And then that leads you to the deeper conversation of the podcast format. So you're able to attract people without having them commit an hour to your show, right?
Right. Yeah. And it can be daunting to just kind of start at the gate and say, I want to create engaging content for YouTube. That can be daunting coming from a position of being an active podcaster already, because you start to immediately picture like, Pat Flynn or Jordan Harbinger or, some MKBHD, like amazing quality content. That can be pretty daunting and say, oh, I have to record in 8K and I have to like have all these fancy animations and motion graphics and lighting. And I think a podcaster already is doing a lot of those things. But it's just not a visual expression. It's not a visual form of creativity. So I actually think video is much more approachable from the perspective of already being a podcaster than just to like start with video. That is a tall mountain to climb right out of the gate of saying, hey, I want to create content and grow an audience and build a show. So I think it's actually like the podcast itself is already a phase that's kind of in the middle of this journey. So you're not starting at zero like a lot of people do. You're starting already at about 50%, maybe more, if you're already doing kind of you might be able to validate the value of video already before recording on SquadCast or recording videos on your own. And I think Headliner is another kind of phase that you could add in there, where you could make these audiograms, create some videos, and say, okay, is that helping me grow my show? What's the engagement look like there? And is it going kind of up and to the right? With the addition of those, and I think that's a pretty good indicator that if the person, you had video of the person actually saying those words, that would probably perform even a little bit better, and then a whole episode of that would perform better.
Yeah, and that's what we've seen too. And it's probably a good segue to kind of the last few questions I have for you, Zach, is shifting to your own podcast between two mics, which I enjoy because there are a couple different flavors to the show. I know you have guests. I know you have like your community builder, right? Ariel, I believe, right? Is it? Yeah. I know you involve her in the show, and then you also do the founder series, right? So tell me a little bit about, as a tech company, why it's important for you to have a podcast in place and how you use it to really communicate with your customers.
Yeah, we didn't start a podcast until I believe we were like over a year of helping other people record their podcasts. And that's because we wanted to do it well, right? We wanted to represent ourselves well. We wanted to take what we had learned as students of our customers and the podcast community. We wanted to actually put that into practice and really live and espouse what or live what we espouse, I should say. And that's why we started off with, I believe, one episode a month, and that was an interview, because SquadCast is a platform that helps people, record interviews or conversations. And we wanted to also provide a unique opportunity to not just create another podcast about podcasts. Harry does a great job of that with Podcast Junkies, right? So there's a number of kind of what he calls meta podcasts, and we didn't want to step on his toes. We wanted to do something unique, so we focused the concept of the show on exploring kind of the boundaries, the edges of what's unique and new in podcasting. And as podcasting continued to evolve and innovate as an ecosystem, that we would surface those stories and tell, the story of why our next episode will be about Podchaser and all the amazing things that they're doing to create the missing IMDb for podcasters and their guests. So there's opportunities for stories like that. And we started with the interviews. And then our listeners started asking us, like, I want to hear about SquadCast more.
Right.
I want to hear your story, because we have opportunities to innovate and move the needle forward. And we had kind of dabbled with that, like in the episodes. We try to let our personalities come through, share some stories, but we're very big on lifting up the guest and providing a great experience and opportunity for them to tell their story and not really make it about ourselves. So that's really where we started from, and we grew towards telling more of our own stories, and that's where the Founder series came in. And we introduced, so we went from a monthly cadence to a 2-week cadence on the interviews, and then we went weekly and alternating between the Founder episodes, where Rock and I talk about our 2 cents about what's going on in the podcast ecosystem, in the tech ecosystem, or our company. Is kind of how we think about those episodes. So I believe we just launched an episode like behind the scenes of launching video recording. So there's a big story there, and we touched on elements of it in this conversation, but we want to really celebrate the long form medium, the audio storytelling. And now that we have video, we're those Founder episodes, and I believe the interviews will start to integrate those and really continue to walk the walk and publish those videos and really see, is that helping our show grow? How do we use these? And that's where the opportunity for promo materials comes in, with the great work that Ariel does, as well as, validating Edison Research's Infinite Dial report, like kind of where we started, right? Do audiences really find value here? Is it just a bad example, but is it just Joe Rogan who the audience cares about when it comes to audio or video, or is that something that can help all podcasters grow and really meet their audiences where they are? And that's our hypothesis, is that I don't think there's anything necessarily unique about his show, other than that he's good on a mic, he's funny, he gets guests that nobody else can, which I think is a huge advantage that nobody really talks about very much. So I think that we can all benefit as podcasters to weave video into our production, and we're doing that experiment actively ourselves. And the show is a way to really do that and practice and show up on the mic and really experience what it is to be a podcaster. It's weird to us that we have some kind of minor competition within the podcasting ecosystem. And it's weird to me, if you're listening, why haven't you started a podcast? Like, I don't get it. Like, we felt weird. We felt weird not having a podcast for the year that I mentioned. So we really want to be in our customers' shoes and live it, use our technology for what it's designed for. And that's even as we continue to grow. It's not just me and Rock who are doing that. I just, in our Facebook group, published a conversation with our lead software engineer, Gene, who has very minimal experience, I think he would say, on mic or on camera. And he, is really big on education and all of those things. So he wants to grow in that way. And I asked, like, do you want to join me for kind of an informal conversation about a minor update, let's like
Yeah.
share that story and talk about those things and share that with the community kind of in a smaller way, but he wants to grow. So that's really cool that we could just, jump on SquadCast, have a conversation about nerdy engineering stuff and all the little things that we're tweaking behind the scenes. And it's good for the community too. So I
Yeah,
love that
that's
about
great.
it.
And yeah, keep the founder series going. I enjoyed that. And I listened to the full one about the video recording release and all the different things that you went through there. Yeah,
Awesome.
we'll
Thank
put
you.
that in show notes for sure because I think both of you guys did a good job just talking about the different dynamics, like your partner was talking about how he wasn't coding and a lot rests on your shoulders, right, for that release. But it was a good dynamic, and I appreciate
Yeah.
it because it's nice with a tech company to get that inside look, right, to see how the sausage is made and see all the it's really the human aspect of it all, which is great. And
It's what I love about podcasts of all kind, but this is our opportunity to really, tell those stories. So, I'm really glad that we've grown the show in those ways, and we have some plans for ways we could continue to grow the show. But it's really exciting to add video to our show and really walk that walk.
Zach, tell me, with the video release behind you, what's next for Squadcast?
It's super exciting to me, all the things that we have planned, and direct feedback from our customers. So it blew my mind how much video recording was our most requested feature, like relative to all the other features people ask us for. Yeah, that blew my mind. So to deliver on that feels really good. And in the very near term, we're focused on removing the beta label. So we're not planning on staying in video beta for very long. We
Mhm.
did 3 months of internal beta testing before we launched it. So we felt pretty confident and we're very rigorously testing it. But there's always things that come up, right? After it's in the real world and in people's hands. So that's what we're focused on in the near term is just closing that chapter, making sure video is fully stable and really good results already. So following that, we're going to be delivering on something we talked about a little bit last year, and that's this unique collaboration with Dolby, really improving the quality of the real time conversation with
Mm.
things like Dolby Voice and spatialized audio. Is going to be a very unique experience to Squadcast, and we're excited to even if it's 1% better quality, it's worth it because that's why we exist. So really exciting developments there, as well as the other side of the Dolby coin is non-destructive post-production, so mastering capabilities to kind of send them a quality file that you've already worked hard to record on Squadcast, send them a copy and they'll send a better version of it back that is like
Mm.
desibilance and background noise reduction and some of the amazing heritage that they have with audio signal processing at Dolby. We're really excited about that. So that'll come up pretty quick after video is announced as stable. And then beyond that, we're going to be building out unique experiences on mobile, so and desktop. So we're going to be, for the first time, Squadcast has always been a web platform and
Yeah.
available on the web, and for a number of reasons. But I think it makes a lot of sense for us to continue to differentiate and provide more and more ways for our customers and their guests to connect and record no matter what device they have in their hand or their pocket or whatever. While still upholding those same standards of quality and reliability. I think that's very exciting to us. So we're going to be that's the big focus for the year is getting mobile cross platform for Android and iOS.
Very cool. Yeah, it sounds like you listen to your customers. I know that's something that our folks are always asking. Is
That's our
how
second
someone's.
most requested feature, I should add.
Yeah, I believe it. It's probably the same for us. It's like, where's the video, and then how about mobile access? So, well,
Yeah.
it sounds like you got everything lined up perfectly there, Zach. I appreciate it. It's a good point here to ask you. Where should people go to find out more about yourself and Squadcast?
Yeah, so you can find out more at squadcast.fm. A lot of content that we create. There's blog posts, there's educational resources, there's videos, there's a mountain of content there that I'm very proud of, and it's all very high quality. And if you're interested in recording on SquadCast, you can sign up through there. We have plans for people just starting out, professionals, studios, enterprises, all that stuff. And we'd be very honored to help with your production workflow. And some of the things that I mentioned here, we're excited to bring those to life, and that's going to be baked in. So exciting times to continue to add value for everybody recording podcasts. We're also going to be hiring software engineers. So if you're interested in working on some of the challenging, audio, video, signal processing, cloud, all of those things, mobile, hit me up. We're going to have some jobs posted on the website, and we'll make some noise about that as well. So we're going to be growing the team this year, and we'd love the opportunity to work with talented engineers. It's very core to our culture at SquadCast. So I think that's a lot of fun to look forward to. And then I'm on social media at Zach __ Moreno with it, Zach with an H. I'm not super active on social, but I do love to see what our customers are creating, and that's a really good way to connect. So yeah, feel free to reach out there, and it's been a lot of fun. And thank you for your time today, Tristan. This has been really
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. This will be our first episode of our new recorded content podcast. I couldn't think of anyone else that would be better to kick it off. So I appreciate it. We're excited to be we're excited to be a part of the journey and love what you guys are doing. So thanks for joining me here today, Zach.
My pleasure.
Introducing Recorded Content, a podcast for small, scrappy B2B marketing teams who want to get the most out of podcasting. In each episode, we capture stories from industry experts and podcasters. Listen in and uncover what it takes to launch, run, and grow a successful B2B podcast. Check out and subscribe to the show on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. Let's jump in.